Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about building wealth and gaining time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. Today, we've got Brandon Cobb here, and Brandon is the CEO at HBG Capital, and Brandon has done a lot through his real estate career to build a vertically integrated real estate investment team. So he's done new construction, wholesale, flipping, that sort of stuff up to where he's at today. Formerly was a sports medicine medical device sales rep, and then you got your GC, and you are in the Nashville area of Tennessee, and you manage $22 million of new development, focusing on single family homes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as to why you like to focus on that. And then active ownership in $33 million in commercial real estate, featured in REI Wealth Magazine, Realty 411 Magazine, Forbes as well. So a lot going on, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, and we're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. It's an honor.
Get started by talking about your background. I know people outside of real estate, or even people inside of real estate that just haven't gotten their butt in gear to invest, are always curious to see, how do people get started in that? So medical device sales to now where you're at today, just walk us through how that happened.
Yeah. So situation where I had my dream job. I'd always wanted to do medical device sales, knew since college that I really enjoyed sales, had a background doing door-to-door sales during the summer, helped pay for college. That's where I sort of cut my teeth, and then wanted to combine the degree I was working on, kinesiology, to help patients out. Shadowed a physical therapist and was like, man, I don't like doing paperwork all day. I want to do the fun stuff. I want to sell these types of things. So spent 3 years trying to break into the industry, finally clawed my way in, and I love what I did. I got to do shoulders and knees. I was a sports medicine rep, so a lot of ACL reconstructive surgeries, labral tears, rotator cuff tears, allografts. I mean, I thought I had the coolest job in the world. I got to show up every day in scrubs, work with surgeons. Nothing was better. And I remember coming to meet my boss at a Starbucks one Friday in June, and was actually pretty excited because the case I just had with the surgeon had gone pretty well. This hospital was doing a power trial. We might be selling them some power equipment. Actually got in the room and could potentially sell them some sports medicine stuff from one of our competitors. I mean, all the things were going right. And he fired me. Came out of left field. I had no clue it was coming and was pretty dumb shocked by it because I'd never been fired before. I didn't really know how to take it. And I've left that meeting just in complete shock because I felt like I had done something wrong, but I didn't know that I'd done something wrong. It was, I just felt like I couldn't control anything. And that was the day when I learned that nobody was going to look out for my financial well-being. You can be as loyal as you want to a company. You can work as many hours as you want, climb the corporate ladder, but at the end of the day, they've got to do what's best for them, and it's no hard feelings. So that's when I turned my talents towards real estate and a few other failed business ventures. Real estate was the first one that took off, and the rest is history.
So interesting to hear, because I know a lot of times people, there's kind of two tracks in real estate. One is, I like doing what I'm doing, and I'm in real estate as a way to build kind of a secondary source of income. Maybe at some point in time, I want to get into it full time, but at least have that secondary stream of income. And then a lot of people in your shoes where it's like, yeah, I want to be my own boss, call my own shots, do my own thing. And whether it's them choosing or whether the choice was made for them to kind of nudge them into real estate, that's kind of how they get there. So when you first were kind of digging into the real estate side, what did you want to do, or where did you dip your toes into the water to get started on real estate?
Yeah, so I didn't have a background. I had no clue what I was doing. Of course, I'd always been a self-help junkie. So I'd read every book out there on the market, right? Huge library. So I knew, okay, I need to find a mentor. I need a who, not how. So I started going to all these real estate meetups, and I was trying to find my mentor. And I knew that whoever I found, I'd have to figure out what they wanted. How do I add value to them? So ended up meeting who's now my partner still to this day, 7 years later, my mentor. And we sat down. We're the only two that showed up at a Starbucks. Funny, got fired from Starbucks and found my my business partner's Starbucks. And we didn't even talk about real estate the first 30 minutes. He was from Colorado Springs. I had just come back there from a sibling trip that I'd done with my brother and sisters. We talked about that, and I told him what I was trying to do, and he's like, "Well, I've got a pretty big portfolio in Colorado Springs. Why don't you come out and look at it?" And I said, "Oh, that'd be kind of cool. What are you trying to do here?" And he said, "Well, I'm trying to get a house flipping and wholesaling operation up here. My girlfriend lives down here. We went to school together. I had to move because of the military, and I'm really wanting to get Nashville up and running." I said, "Well, what do you need help with?" And he said, "Right now it's just deal flow." And I said, "Okay, so if I can find deals, or if someone found you deals, you would, you'd know how to handle it from there on out." And he said, "Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It's just a time thing because I live in the Springs." And I said, "Okay, well, what do you think I should do?" And so we hopped in the car, and he showed me how to do driving for dollars. I'd read about this, and I was like, "Okay, well, this is pretty easy. All right, let's see about getting this up and running." And over the next 6 weeks, I spent about 4 to 5 hours a day in a car, and I just drove around neighborhoods and put addresses into an app. And we just started mailing those addresses. So we had a very niche list. We were very laser focused. And that's how we got started. And when the profits started to roll in, we weren't doing a ton of deals. We did, I think, maybe 9 deals the first year. But we literally took all the profits and just dumped it back into the business in the form of masterminds, mentorship, coaching, marketing. I like to joke that there's a scene in Batman where the Joker slides down the pile of money and then pours gasoline on it and lights it on fire. I mean, that's what we were doing with marketing dollars. And that's how we were able to grow so quickly, was all the reinvestment, not only back into the business, but back into ourselves as well.
So then you got into wholesaling. So then where did the construction piece come along? Because I know that you've done some construction as well. So thinking about people that are like, how does this even happen? A guy who's done medical device sales, now you're in real estate, you have a mentor. How do you get into construction? Because you haven't had construction experience as well. How did that happen for you?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate a good challenge. And while I wouldn't advise people to do what I did, I'll tell you what I did, and I'll tell you why it did end up paying out long term. First deal we ever did was a house flip. I was driving about an hour and 10 minutes every single day to go and flip that house. Now, luckily, we bought it right? All the mistakes you can make on a project can all be corrected as long as you just buy it right. And we made plenty of mistakes, but the margins were so good and we bought it right that we didn't have to worry about those issues. Third deal we did were wholesale deals. Fourth deal we did was a new construction deal. And this is where I would say, don't do what I did. I was not a builder. I did not have a background building. And we hired this builder, and Lord and behold, after the project gets framed up, I mean, he basically just walked off. It was up to me to finish up this project. And, we had some money. I had a little bit of a nest egg sort of saved up. I said, let's tackle it. And, fast forward 4 months, I'm broke because I've sunk all my money into this new construction project. I'm trying to answer all the phones because all these leads are calling from the marketing. I'm trying to manage, 2 other flips that we have going on. And I'm trying to go on all the appointments that I'm supposed to be making. And it was at that point where I learned how a 26, 27-year-old young, single, motivated guy, how hard he could work, because I hit the wall. I was working every single day and I was motivated, but man, I had to make a decision to see what part of the business needed to bleed. And so we had to take a tactical pause for a few months and not do any marketing and not answer any calls and not go on any appointments and finish this house so I could get my money out of it. And that's, I learned from the school of hard knocks, I guess is what I'm saying. It was a great experience. I would definitely not advise somebody to do what I did. It all worked out great, but it was very stressful. Now, that also set the way for future successes, because all the mistakes that we made, I joke that all the right things I do today are just a matter of all the mistakes that I've made. You can fail so many times that the only decisions left are the right, correct decisions. And I feel like that's how we've gotten it. So that's how we sort of cut our teeth in the initial stages. Didn't do a new construction project for years later, but transitioned into it when we had accidentally stumbled upon some fire damaged and some tornado damaged properties that we were able to buy it for less than what the land was worth. And we said, well,
Mhm.
hell, the foundation's good, half the framing's good.
Right.
Let's just cut out all the black stuff, hire a structural engineer, get the city out here, make sure it's all safe, frame it up, and just rebuild on it. And that's how we started doing new construction projects. The light bulb went off when we had a home that we were rehabbing next to a home that we were building. And I remember the day where we sold the house that we built and we're still rehabbing the other one. I go, how in the world? We built this house in 6 months and sold it. It was like 5 or 6 months. And we're still rehabbing this one. We're on month number 6. What in the world are we doing here? And we looked at the profit margins on the new construction, and they were like 4 times as much. I mean, they were like, 25% profit margins on the revenue of what the home would sell for. I mean, we really liked that. And it was at that point where we decided, hey, we really needed to pivot.
So then you pivot to focusing on new construction now. So where finding the land, what areas are you targeting? Because you're in the Nashville area. So what is it that's running through your head when you're figuring out where do we want to do these developments?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we kept the marketing team in place and the sales team that we built up, right? We had felt the squeeze though. We knew that it was taking a lot more incoming phone calls to generate an appointment, and it was taking a lot more appointments to generate a deal. I mean, we went from like 6, 7 appointments to, 13, 14. We went from, 25 phone calls to 40. So we had everything measured, and luckily we had those dials in place so that we could see. So when we transitioned over to doing just new construction, it was kind of the same game, but a little bit different. We were doing a lot of infill. It was fantastic. It was great, but we were chasing a lot of these onesie twosie deals, and we'd been stuck at doing, 40, 50 transactions a year. And we're like, how do we break through this threshold in this, hyper competitive market? And it was at that point when we realized that we needed to do more deals in the same area. Being so spread out with the onesie twosie infill deals all over the place was just not going to work. And so we decided that we were going to start doing land development, building multiple homes in the same area so that the PMs could just show up to one location as opposed to, 20 different ones all over the place. And we said, okay, well, we've got to find these really good deals. How do we do that? So what we did was we said, what's the vision of these suburbs that we want to develop? Right? What are they trying to achieve? So we actually went and we met with the planning commission. We meet with the mayor sometimes. We'd meet with the building inspectors, and we asked them. We said, "Hey, tell us the vision for the city. Where are y'all wanting to see growth? Where are y'all not wanting to see growth? Where do y'all want to see apartments? Where do y'all want to see more single family homes?" And no one had ever done this with them before. And they were kind of like dumbfounded. They were like, this is very respectable that you guys are doing this, because most developers will bring something and try to shove it, down their throat.
Right.
And so
you're combative. A lot of times you're combative versus actually being aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once we had that, we literally took a map and said, show me the areas, like, let's circle them. And so now we had these very, very laser focused sales efforts to get in touch with these owners in these very specific areas. And we could rezone their land and pay them way more than what their home was currently worth, sitting on, 20, 30 acres. So it was a win-win for the city because they were getting what they wanted.
Yeah.
It was a win-win for us because we were cultivating a relationship and knew exactly where to focus our time and efforts. And it was a huge win for the homeowners because we were putting a lot more money in their pocket. And that's how we got started doing land development.
Now, how did you, because ultimately with HBG Capital, you're raising money. So how did you finance that piece?
Yeah. So like everybody else, when we were doing infill, it'll suck up all your money. And that's exactly what had happened. We had it basically just sucked up all of our money. And so the growth was very stagnant. And so we've always used our own money, and we continue to invest our own capital in projects to these days, right along with our investors. But after we had done, 155 transactions and were out of our own funds and going, it's going to take another 7-8 months to get our money out of this. And then we've got to grow and scale and we got to pay the operations. How can we circumvent this? How can we grow quicker? And through a lot of the relationships that I had in the masterminds and the coaching, I knew that people were using people's money in order to do these deals. And so I was like, okay, well, let me talk to some investors. And up until that point, kind of in my spare time, I'd raised about $4 million or so, right? If we needed some construction money, like $300,000 to go and build a home, I'd go raise the money. So I'd start talking to investors, getting my name out there. People knew who we were because of our wholesale list, and people were very, very excited to give us money because they had seen a lot of what we were doing on social media and seen a lot of what we're doing through our email blasts when we send out properties and give updates. And that's when things took off, when we were able to supplement our powder with investor capital and pull our money out and use our money for scaling the business, making the right hires, covering budget overages. That's when things really took off.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's always stuck with me is, I had somebody that had told me, once you master the money game of investing in real estate, then essentially like you can go do what you want to do, but it takes time because you have to build up a reputation. You have to do right by the investors that you've worked with previously. But once you have that good story to share and you have that experience behind you, now you can go and you have the relationships and the trust built up. Now you can go find that money. And I think that's a challenge for people starting out, is they don't know how to go find money. And it takes time and it takes relationships and it takes doing right by the relationships that you have. But then once you get that, like you said, it's a powder keg. Now you can go build on those relationships and that past experience that you have.
Oh yeah, we could do a whole 3-4 episodes on just raising capital. There's so much that goes into it, but think of it like a flywheel where, we had some investors that only started off with, 50 to 100 grand. And, now they've got multiple 7 figures with us. You'd be very surprised, who has money. And it just seems like every time that we return their money to them with the returns, that they end up investing even more or telling their friends and family or whoever to come. So your relationships are going to be key. One thing that we use, because we realized this early on, that a lot of the capital that we raise, a good portion of it comes from existing investor bases, just investing more once they've seen a few turns. We create an investor experience roadmap. So every step that somebody takes is completely planned out with us. And our whole goal is to take them from knowing nothing about real estate and what we do and make them an expert on how their money is going to create generational wealth for them and they can build their legacy.
Yeah. I was going back to what you were saying about people doing a couple of deals and getting a couple turns on it. That's always also been our mindset, is if we help you invest your money and make money, then you're going to want to invest more money back with us. And so I think that's the natural life cycle too of the investors is, once they do more deals, now they've got more to invest, and that kind of hockey stick growth continues to happen. So there's a few other things that I want to talk about. So one is kind of the commercial piece. The other thing I want to talk about is in terms of building and growing your team. Let's touch on the commercial side. How did that come to be for you, and where did it grow from the new construction?
Yeah, so we knew that we wanted to diversify, right? And when you're selling a lot of homes, you have a tax problem. And so our goal was to diversify into commercial and multifamily so that we could get the depreciation and our investors could get the depreciation and offset their income. So just like everything else, I started with my own money. I started investing in other people's deals. I understood how the syndications work. We were doing syndications as well with our own, neighborhoods and development. So I knew what to look for. I knew how to vet the sponsors and operators because I was an operator, I was a sponsor, and I kind of got the hang of how this worked. I learned how to analyze, deals and markets and make sure that it was good. And we had a deal come across from an old friend and acquaintance from an old mastermind. He had an apartment complex in Daytona Beach, Florida, and it was a really, really good deal. I mean, it checked all the boxes. It was Class B. It was very heavy value add. It was in a great growing area. It was in Florida. So everything from the top down to the bottom demographics were perfect for what we were looking for. And so I felt very comfortable bringing our investors into that deal. And that's how I got started. So I chose to partner with an operator who had, over 5 exits, demonstrated track record. He'd raised about $50 million, had a great reputation. I knew his integrity was good because I'd known him for about 5 years. And once those boxes were checked, I felt comfortable bringing other people on board. And that's how we got into commercial and multifamily.
Awesome. So where are you investing now, or what types of investments are you looking for in the commercial space?
In commercial, if it's local, I'd love local, but if it's not, we're okay with that. I like multifamily in Phoenix, Arizona. It's one of the best markets for rent growth. I love Florida. Florida's kind of hard to go wrong with. We really like areas where it's business friendly. The past 2 years, there has been a new development. People are realizing that there are business friendly states. And there are non-business friendly states. And so there's an exodus going on right now, and people want to move to those states. COVID, I think, just lit the fire underneath. There's Tennessee, Florida. We didn't shut everything down during COVID, right? We kept everything open. I like that. You want to be a business owner in that kind of economy. So we look for that. Also, no income taxes. Tennessee, Florida. We really like that as well. There's so many people moving from New York and California, these states that are just taxing businesses to death. If you move businesses to an area, you can bet that area is going to experience significant growth, significant population growth, and it's going to be a very healthy economy. So we're focused on that. We're focused on asset classes that provide insulation against market volatility. In other words, bring on the recession. We're not scared of it, right? This is one of the big reasons why we're focusing on first-time home buyer homes. So I don't use the word affordable housing because it's not Section 8 or government housing, but I'm talking about that entry-level home that there's no supply and huge demand for. We really like that asset class. That's mostly what we're doing here in Tennessee with our operations. We really like storage units. We really like assisted living facilities. Mobile home parks, we'll look at that as well. Anything that we feel like provides multiple layers of insulation in the event of an economic contraction.
So you had mentioned about having your investor experience roadmap. For somebody that's interested in investing with you, how does that relationship start, and kind of how does it grow and develop along the roadmap? And obviously you've touched on a lot of the key things that you guys are focusing on. But for somebody that is an accredited investor, maybe doesn't have experience working in real estate and wants to get into it, how does that process work with you?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of people see us on podcasts, social media, our email chain, word of mouth, friends and family, Google. And usually once they touch us on one of those platforms, they usually go to our website. And our whole goal on our website is to provide as much value as possible. I had an investor one time call me, and I was like super depressed after the call. He had literally just lost all of his investment to a real estate developer. I mean, the paperwork was done wrong. There was no securitization to the property. I mean, it was a complete disaster. And he was trying to figure out what he could do. And I was like, who knows where the money is now? Because it sounds like he did not use that money to actually execute on the project. And I was like, how do I prevent this from happening to somebody else? And so I put together a book, and it's on our website. It's under the educational resources tab. And it's called 100 Questions Passive Investors Should Be Asking Before Investing. And the whole point of that book was to give somebody who's new and green the tools they need to make sure that they're making a good investment. Because that's what you have going against you when you're new. You don't know what you don't know. And having the right questions, being armed with the right questions to ask a sponsor and operator before you invest, makes a world of difference. So that's on our website. You can grab it. It's hbgcapital.net. It's harrybobgarycapital.net. It's completely free. So usually people will go and they'll just dive into a lot of our educational content, and they'll get to know us. Our YouTube channel is on there. They'll go watch some YouTube videos. Our podcast is on there, Recession Resistant Real Estate. They'll go listen to some episodes because they're just getting to know us, right? And we're just wanting to educate them, because that's the biggest hurdle somebody has when it comes to investing, is they're not going to invest in something that they don't know, or something they don't understand, or somebody that they don't like and trust. Some people sign up for our other ebook, Recession Resistant Passive Income. If you do that, you get a series of like 6 emails. Those 6 emails have information that our investor base thought was most valuable to them. So, how to use your retirement accounts to invest in real estate, how to set up a self-directed IRA. What is depreciation? How can you use depreciation to offset your income and pay less in taxes? All these things go into it. And then at that point, once they feel like we've done enough value add to them, then they'll usually set up an appointment, which they can do on our website. They set it up through Calendly. We give them some past deals to review. So you're not wondering what you're walking into right off the bat in the email. You get some past deals that we've done to familiarize yourself with. And we just do an intro call with them that's just designed to get to know them. There's no hard sales pitch. We just want to genuinely get to know what their needs are. What does the long-term view look like? What are the biggest obstacles that are getting in their way and how we can help? And, after that phone call, they can, we usually follow up a couple times. We send them some stuff and see if that's a fit. And if they say it's a fit, then we'll hop on another call. We'll walk through next steps, and then we can start sending them opportunities.
That's awesome. It's, there's so much that goes into this. And I touched on this before about building a good team of people. Because even from the early days, you talked about, sales and marketing, building your website, creating great relationships with people. So talk a little bit about leveraging yourself and growing your company through others, hiring rock star people. What are some of the principles that you've lived by, or what are some of the stories of success that you've had in doing that, succeeding with others?
Yeah. So I feel like this is something that we do well. I feel like we've currently got a team full of rock stars, and we're growing and we're all rowing in the right direction. And we've got a whole process, and I'll walk through this and I'll try to touch on it so it's not all long and drawn out, but I want to give people some actionable advice they can take for hiring people. So the first thing we do, we hire for core values and skills, and we hire for core values first because it might be possible to teach them the skills. We're a big Traction EOS fan. I can touch base on that in a second.
Yep.
But we use Wise Hire. I really like Wise Hire because they go out and they post your ad on all the different platforms for you, and they have a nice funnel system that makes everything neat and organized. But I'll go in, and after we select the candidates, to have a phone conversation. My phone conversation goes something like this. Hey, so excited you're here. You made it this far. I've got a handful of questions for you. There's no right or wrong answers. I just want to get to know you. First question, I know you made it this far. What stood out most about the opportunity in the company to you? And really all I'm looking for is, did they do any kind of homework or preparation? Because if they didn't do any kind of preparation, they're out. So if they don't answer that question right, it's basically out. Next, I'll ask why they're getting a new job. Did they get fired? Do they hate their past employer? I'm looking for some negativity there, right? Nobody with negativity is allowed. It's only positivity. Next, I'll ask them, what do you want to get out of this position that you're not currently getting out of your current or previous position? And there, I'm just looking for, what do they want specifically? Are they just looking for something new, or do they have some very specific needs in mind that I can hit on? The next question I'll ask, what do you want to get out of this long term? So I want to make sure that we're hiring people that there's future growth opportunities. And then lastly, I'll ask, what are your income requirements? Because you want to make sure that's a fit before you spend all this time and effort doing the next steps. If they pass that, then they get a video email. And in the video email has several questions that they need to answer. And we ask these questions because we're screening for core values. So one of our core values in the organization is growth. So how do you screen for that? One of the questions that we ask in the email is, and by the way, we want them to record all the answers, because one of the other reasons why we send this video and ask them to record the answer to all their questions is, I want to see if this is a cultural fit and if I like this person, right? So before I spend an hour and a half in person meeting with them at the office, I want to make sure there's cultural fit right there. So I'll ask them, tell me about the past 3 to 5 books or podcasts that you've listened to. What did you learn from it? Because somebody who has that growth core value is somebody who's going to be reading books and podcasts and trying to better themselves. They want to learn. So if they can't answer that question, I already know immediately it's out. If they can't remember the past 3 or 5, I know they haven't been doing it. So we'll ask questions around those core values. Now, if they pass that, then we set up what we call a behavioral style interviewing process. And this is, I know they've got the core values at this point. This interview is used to confirm those core values. And now we want to figure out, do they have this skill set? So the difference between behavioral style interviewing and regular style interviewing, you're asking questions that they can have canned responses for. So what's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weak? Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't do
I
us
care
any
too
good.
much. I work too hard.
Yeah. It's the same thing over and over and over again, right? I'm a perfectionist, blah, blah, blah. We ask them to tell us stories about times that they've exemplified a skill. So that's behavioral style interviewing. So our whole interview process is stories, which one, it makes it fun. And two, you can't really BS a story. If you can, it's really tough. So if we're hiring for a superintendent role, and I need to know if they've got the skills and expertise to manage and fire contractors, I would say, tell me about a time where you're required to fire a contractor. How did you make that decision? What was the trigger point? How did you go about finding somebody new? Or I'll ask them, what steps do you take to win the contract, your subs respect before asking them to do things? So these are questions that I'm asking. I want to hear stories of times that they've done these things, because you can't really BS a story. So after we know that they've got the skill set, they've got the core values. Now we've got a pretty darn good idea whether or not, we want to hire this person. And so what we'll actually do is we'll do a ride along with them, for a couple hours if they can get away. And we'll actually, let's say it's the same position, it's a superintendent position. We'll take them to some of the projects, and we purposely pick out projects where there might be something wrong, or, like it's just some kind of small issue. And we're walking them through it. And we want to see if they can pick out the mistakes or what they would do differently. We want to ask them, okay, so what's the next stage here? If you were to take over this project right now, what next steps would you take to get it back on track? And I want to see if they know what they're talking about. Because if someone has the skills and expertise to do that, you're going to know, because they're right there and they're on the spot, and you just threw them in that situation. They can't record that. The most important thing that we're doing during this last part is we're looking for a strategic partner, not an employee. So nobody works for me. Everybody works with me. This is a team effort. And if you want to grow a hyper-fast organization, you have to hire strategic partners. The difference is an employee will fit right nice and neat into that role, and they'll create a well-oiled machine, and they'll kind of keep that leg going. A strategic partner will come in and advise you what you're doing wrong, where the gaps are, where the inefficiencies are. Strategic partners grow that department and take it to the next level. So I only hire people who are smarter than me in the specific field that we're hiring for, and can actually blow it up and advise us. So if this person can't come into the position and almost teach us how to do it better, we don't hire that person. So if we get that feeling, the very last thing that we do is we do a mock work day, where we say, hey, we're going to pay you for a full day to come to work. And I'll give them some tasks to do. And I'll say, I want you to call me at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and then 5 p.m. And I want you to give me an update, because I want to see how well they are at taking orders and following up at specific time periods. And if that goes really well, and we've confirmed the culture fit, we paid them for that day, it went really well, and my team is on board, because team members will also interview them. We'll kind of let them interview throughout the process if they're going to be working with this person. Then we usually pull the trigger on them. That mock work day is so important. And that's basically our whole hiring process boiled down in a nutshell.
There's so much nuance and wisdom there for somebody that's hired a lot of people. I wish we could just spend a full episode talking about that process, because little things like, giving them homework through the process. I talk with people about, you want to have a smooth process, but you don't want to make it so smooth that the person is just hiring or, blasting resumes to lots of different places. Like you said, you want to ask them questions. What research did you do about the company, or try to figure out what research they've done about the company, because you want them to want this job, not a job. And so, the stuff that you're talking about is the things that I like to do as well. Being able to ask them open-ended questions, because there's so many questions that I ask that sometimes I wonder why, to the candidate, like, why is this person asking me this question? But it's all the other stuff that you're trying to figure out, like you said, you've got your core values, you're asking these questions to figure out the core values. And it's the questions where they don't have those canned answers. And so you want to take them off guard a little bit, but you want to find out more about who they are. And then being able to see them on site, to be able to experience, because there's so many times we hire people and the first day they show up and you're like, oh, this person performs job's different or they're different on the job, and you're getting a chance to see them in action. So there's so much nuance there that I just love what you're doing. And it's no doubt why you're building a good organization, because you're taking time to find the right people. And even like you said, strategic partners versus just employees. There's so much nuance there in what you've done. Congratulations for your process, because you do it much differently than a lot of other people do.
Well, thanks. I'm blessed to have a good team. And yeah, I'm sure we could do a whole episode on capital raising systems and process, and a whole 40-minute episode on hiring and firing.
For folks that want to learn more about you, HBG Capital, how can folks find out more about you?
Sure. So if you're interested in learning more about capital preservation, building generational wealth, if you're interested in building a legacy and impacting those around you through passive income from your investments, I'd encourage you to go to our website, hbgcapital.net. It's harrybobgarycapital.net. I joked that the .com was not available, so we're stuck with the .net. But we've got a ton of free educational resources on there. Grab the book, 100 Questions Investors Should Be Asking Before Investing, so you don't make a mistake like the guy who called me and had lost all of his money. If you're interested in our niche investing strategy, free ebook, Recession Resistant Passive Income, goes into what we're doing and the structure and the ins and outs. And then if you're interested in just getting to know us, we've got a Calendly link right on our website. You can schedule a call. It's usually 20, 30 minutes. We just look forward to getting to know you, or you can just ask me whatever questions you want. We look forward to getting to know you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I just appreciate you taking the time to come on. And it's no surprise that you're successful in what you do, because you take time, you hire great people, you're putting good systems and processes in place. And what does the future look? Where do you guys want to continue to grow moving forward?
Yeah, so we see a huge opportunity in Nashville and the surrounding areas for first-time home buyer homes. It's a great market. There's so many levels of insulation that Nashville offers that we see a long-term opportunity here. So we want to get up doing about 300 homes a year, and then starting to build apartments in commercial multifamily. We bought it, but we know what our construction cost is right now, and the cost to replace is so much lower than what you can buy. You can build a new apartment complex for less than what you can buy it for now. That's crazy, y'all. So that's what we want to get into.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing in the time that we had, and best of luck to you in the future.
Hey, thanks. It was an honor. Appreciate you having me on.